many times in the last week have you complained about lack of time? Hi, my name is Mangum. I'm a trainer, I'm an author, but more importantly, I'm your real estate coach. And we're going to take on the topic of time management in this two-part edition of Sale to Serve. So I was talking to my coach one day, and I had been complaining about lack of time, and probably for the 10th time in the last hour. And finally he called me on it, and what he said was, stop bitching about time. There's no such thing as time management. There's only priority management. Wow, that was a little shift in the way to think. There's no such thing as time management. There's only priority management. It took a little bit for that to kind of sink in, and once it did, I thought, okay, I'm in. I understand that. He's absolutely correct. But the big question was, how am I going to move from a time management thought process to a priority management thought process? And so what I did was I went all back to the good old success model, which I use very frequently when I'm trying to make changes. And so what I want to describe for you today is the steps I took to go from time management to priority management using the success model. All right, so step one of this process is to identify what it is that is the perfect world. And the perfect world, what would this whole priority management thing look like? Well, in my perfect world, it would be I ended the day, and at the end of the day, I had accomplished some big goals. I had, or at least moved myself toward the accomplishment of those goals. And in the meantime, I had spent some quality time with my friends and my family. So that was my perfect world. All right, step two is to identify exactly where you are right now. And where I was right then was at the end of the day, I was exhausted. I felt like I hadn't accomplished anything, and I certainly had spent no quality time. And it was really unsatisfying. And so that's where I was. And honestly, I probably, to make myself feel better, grab a cookie or two at the end of the day just to kind of make myself feel better about it. And so that's where I was. So in the good old coaching world, you have where you want to be, the vision, and you have where you are now. And those two things do what we call create the gap. And the gap is really important because now we've got to ask the question of how are we going to get from over there to over here? And that would be step three. And that is to identify a plan or a model. So I didn't know how to do that, and I didn't have one of those, so I had to go start reading, and I started collecting information, and ultimately I put together what I call the priority management model. I've used it for years, and I've introduced it to coaching clients for years, and it worked really, really well. And so let me say that part two of this video series, I am describing the priority management model. So make sure to go over and look at that. So decide what you're going to do to move yourself from here to here. Priority management, video 2. All right, so step 4. Step 4 is really important and is often overlooked, and that is to identify your barriers. To say, okay, what's going to get in my way? What's going to derail me? Well, that was pretty easy for me, and that was email. And my typical morning was, the alarm went off, I rolled over, I grabbed my smartphone, and I started looking at what had come in since I looked at it at 11 o'clock the night before. Now I was looking at it at 6 a.m., and I was starting to respond. I would get out of bed, I would get straight into my office. I didn't kiss my husband hello, I didn't feed the dogs, I went straight to my office, and I started responding. And you know, Brendan Bouchard said this best, and I'm paraphrasing, by the way, but email is someone else's priority landing in your world. They're not your priorities, they're somebody else's priorities. And that is so true. So I made a huge decision, and that decision was I was not going to look in my inbox until 11 a.m. Did that give you kind of a bad feeling when I said that? Yeah, it was hard. And full disclosure, some mornings I didn't make it past 10, all right? So full disclosure on that. But the results were amazing. I cannot believe how much good quality, substantive, move my goals forward kind of work that got done in those first few hours of the morning. It is hands down one of the best things I've ever done for myself. And one of the things I want you to do is consider taking that action. Maybe you just start until 9 and then you go to 10 and then you go to 11. And I know I can hear you saying it, but Joe, I'm a real estate agent and you know there's fires. And yeah, there are fires that come in the email. But you know, the majority of the time those fires can wait till 10 o'clock. Nothing's going to burn down before 10 o'clock. So just think about it. All right, so those are the 4 steps in the success model. So the next video, again, is going to give you the priority management model. And so you can go look at that. In the meantime, make sure to go out and subscribe to us on YouTube so you can make sure not to miss the videos. Follow me on Twitter and reach out to me on LinkedIn. And in the meantime, please remember, it is the learners who are the earners.